Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Naruto had the most beautiful eyes she'd ever seen. They were like the summer sky, like the tropical sea, and endlessly blue. Hinata thought privately, for she would never dare voice this aloud, that his eyes were more striking than any Hyuga eyes could ever hope to be. The pale pupilless eyes of her family's vaunted bloodline were cold, prideful, and intimidating. Naruto's eyes were the exact opposite. They were warm, vibrant, and full of life. Naruto's eyes were almost too pretty for a boy, she decided. Long, full eyelashes that curled up at the tips framed sapphire orbs. She could spend all day daydreaming about his eyes. Naruto was almost the exact antithesis to the Hyuga. Her clan was stern, almost cold, dignity was to be preserved at all costs. Rules were to be adhered to at all times. With their unique silver-white eyes and dark hair, the Hyuga were unmistakably the elite of the elite and the pride of Konoha. Naruto, on the other hand, was anything but. He was an unrecognized orphan with no background. He embodied chaos and flaunted the rules. It seemed fitting that, physically, he was as far from a Hyuga as it was possible to get. He had sun-kissed golden hair, not brown or black, and adorable whisker-like birthmarks on his cheeks. And he was so strong. He seemed to bounce back from any obstacle with little to no effort. Whenever he got knocked down, he got right back up and kept going. He was like no one else she'd ever met in her short life. He was everything she'd ever wanted to be. It was no wonder she developed a horrible crush on him the instant she'd seen him. Currently, she was in class trying desperately, with limited success, to keep her focus on Iruka-sensei's lesson, instead of on her blonde classmate. She couldn't afford to miss a thing. She was only in her second year at the academy, but already her performance shamed her father and her clan. Last year, she had received decent scores all across the board and been ranked somewhere in the upper middle of her class. But for the Hyuga, a decent score was abysmal. A Hyuga should ace any test of skill or knowledge, and to rank around the middle of her class was an embarrassment. A Hyuga should easily be able to surpass his or her peers. This held doubly true for the Hyuga heiress. She needed to do better this year. If she failed to score perfect marks this year, she didn't even want to imagine what her punishment would be. She shuddered inwardly. It didn't help matters that her cousin Neji, who was just 1 year older than her, had ranked first in his class. He had outperformed all his peers, seemingly without any effort. Already, he was hailed as the next great genius of her generation, and he was only 8. To make matters worse, he was the prodigy of the Hyuga branch family, while she was the heiress of the Hyuga main family. The lesson of the day was memory retention techniques used by shinobi in the field. Iruka-sensei was going over various mind games to strengthen memory recall and different ways to memorize information quickly. It was intriguing. She could see useful applications for these memory tricks outside of the shinobi field. For instance, she could use them to remember all the guests, by name and title, at the formal political dinners with her family that she was forced to meet and greet. She could also use them to memorize names and qualities of medicinal plants. Naruto, pay attention, barked Iruka-sensei, as he threw an eraser at the blonde. The class snickered as the eraser hit him in the face. The blonde boy had apparently been simultaneously preparing spitballs, folding paper airplanes, and carving the words, "Sasuke sucks," on his desk with a kunai. Naruto took multitasking to a whole new level. These memory retention techniques are very important for a ninja. And they're especially important for you. You can use them to help you remember your lessons and homework assignments, especially since you seem to keep forgetting everything I say. But Iruka-sensei. No buts, Naruto. If you're going to be a ninja. I am. If you're going to be a ninja, Iruka continued as if he hadn't been interrupted, then you'll need to be able to remember mission details after only hearing them once. You'll need to memorize names, faces, ranks and techniques from the bingo book. And what if you're sent on an espionage mission? After you infiltrate the enemy's base, you'll need to memorize exact numbers of enemy ninja and escape routes. If you discover their plans and strategies, you'll need to memorize those, too. You'll need to do all this without writing any of it down. Hi, Iruka-sensei, Naruto said with a gusty sigh, rubbing his head where the eraser had struck. Cheer up, Naruto. You can also use these techniques to memorize my lectures. Iruka grinned. Tell you what, if you can prove to me that you've mastered these memory retention techniques, I'll let you get away without taking notes in class for a week, because I'll assume you will memorize the lectures instead. All right, Iruka-sensei. Why didn't you say so before? Naruto pumped his fist in the air. Hinata almost giggled at his behavior. He was just so full of life. That applies everyone else, too. The rest of the class perked up at that announcement. Iruka continued with the lecture. Now, as part of the midterm exams next week, you will be expected to demonstrate your ability to retain information using the memory techniques that we just discussed. An audio recording of 5 different mission details and 5 hypothetical conversations between enemy ninja will be played once, for the entire class, first thing in the morning. So don't be late. After lunch, you will write down every detail that you can remember from all 10 scenarios. Your grade is based on how much detail you have memorized. The class groaned. Your homework assignment for this week will be to practice all of these memory techniques using these. Iruka held up a cassette tape from a box on his desk. Make sure you each take one before you leave today. Each of these tapes contain 60 minutes of different scenarios you may encounter in the field, as well as a handful of bingo book entries, mostly well-known ninja. I expect you to listen to the tape, write down what you can remember, then go back and listen again, to see how much you were able to remember. The lunch bell rang, signaling the end of the lesson and the beginning of the lunch hour. The class, as one entity, swarmed out the doors of the academy and into the fresh air outside. Hinata noticed that her crush was lingering behind, deliberately waiting for all the other students to exit. He must want to speak with Iruka-sensei in private. She was torn, hesitating just outside the classroom. It was wrong to eavesdrop on other people's conversations. Hinata knew this. But the chance to find out more about her crush was so tempting. In the end, her curiosity overrode her conscience. She stayed where she was, out of sight of both Naruto and Iruka-sensei, but not out of earshot. Iruka-sensei. Both Iruka and Hinata were surprised at the hesitant tone coming from the normally confident blonde. Yes, Naruto. What can I help you with? Asked Iruka kindly. It's about our homework assignment. The assignment is very straightforward. I know it might not be fun. But if you master these techniques, it'll really be good for you, encouraged Iruka. It's not that, sensei, Naruto said in a small voice. Hinata had to strain to hear him. I don't own a cassette player, he said in a rush. At Iruka's look of surprise, he hurried to explain himself. I don't own a cassette player. And I can't purchase one. The stipend I receive for my school expenses won't cover something like this. I barely have enough for our textbooks and practice kunai and shuriken since those are so expensive. For someone like Hinata who had been trained from a young age to read both body language and tone of voice, the shame of having to admit to money problems was crystal clear. Can I borrow a tape player for the week? Please. I promise I won't damage it. Naruto asked hopefully. Outside, Hinata was momentarily stunned to hear that her crush couldn't afford something as simple as a tape player. Then she berated herself for her lack of insight. She knew he was an orphan. Coming from one of the richest clans in Konoha, she'd never had to worry about money. Still, that's not a good excuse. Of course, he wouldn't have money. He was an unrecognized orphan with no inheritance and he was too young to work. She was so distracted by this revelation that she completely missed what they were saying next. Naruto, Iruka said slowly. What do you mean when you said that your practice kunai and shuriken were expensive? Those things are dirt cheap. Practice kunai and shuriken intended for academy students were usually damaged or blunted and just one step away from being melted down for metal. I know approximately how much Naruto receives from the Orphan Scholarship Fund. It should be more than enough. I buy them from the main weapons shop downtown, by the Hokage Tower. They're cheapest there. Everywhere else is more expensive. I've checked. But they still cost about 2,500 yen a pair. Naruto looked down. 2,500 yen a pair. That's at least 5 times more than practice weapons are worth. Naruto was being deliberately overcharged. Iruka knew that the villagers despised Naruto's existence. He was ashamed to admit that, for a while, he had as well. Until Naruto had entered his classroom, he'd never thought much of the blonde, if he thought of him at all. But in the year that he'd been teaching Naruto, he had become fond of the little troublemaker. Naruto was just a boy, very much like Iruka had been. Naruto was quickly becoming the little brother he'd never had. Of course, Iruka had always been aware that the villagers were rude and unkind to Naruto. But to charge over 5 times what the practice weapons were worth. This was the first time he'd really understood, in his heart, and really saw, with uncovered eyes, how Naruto was abused and mistreated. Iruka seethed internally with anger. He took deep breath to try and calm himself. Naruto, still looking down, missed the dark look that crossed Iruka's face. Listen, Naruto, I'm sorry, I guess I never realized that ninja tools would be so expensive. Iruka thought furiously, how could he help Naruto without injuring his pride? More importantly, without bringing up the injustices Naruto was suffering. That would lead to too many questions he couldn't answer. I know, but as an instructor for the academy, I receive significant discounts on practice weapons for academy students, he lied through his teeth. At least the smile on his face was genuine. So the next time you need to buy them, come to me first, okay? I can help you buy them for much less than what you're paying now. Really? Wow. Thanks a lot, Iruka-sensei. You're the best. Naruto's enthusiastic shout brought Hinata out of her self-chastisement. Unfortunately, that won't help you right now. Iruka sighed. The academy has a few tape players. But I'm afraid that students aren't allowed to use them without supervision and they aren't allowed out of the classroom. Naruto's shoulders drooped. The best I can do is to let you stay in here with me during lunch times. You can use the tape player to practice then. Hinata slipped her hand into her pack. Fumbling a little, she felt for the cold, hard plastic of her own personal tape player. In a rare moment of indulgence, she had splurged and purchased a little player for herself, so that she could listen to her favorite music whenever she wanted. She could help him. This was her chance. She could give Naruto her player. The Hyuga weren't the richest clan in Konoha for nothing. There were several other tape players scattered about the estate that she could use for her assignment instead. But, if she gave it to him now, then Naruto would know that she'd been eavesdropping. What would he think of her? Would he hate her for spying on him? Her heart trembled with indecision. To run forward, or to run away, what should she do? In an alternate time and place, Hinata did not move. She did not offer him her tape player. And she did not find the courage to offer her friendship to Naruto until after their first Chunin exams. He would go through the next 5 years of the academy friendless and lonely while she watched from afar. One small action at the right time, at the right place, would change the world. In this time and place, Hinata took one small step. One small significant step, followed by another, then another. I won't run away. I won't run away. Until she was standing before the 2 surprised males. Hinata? Her sensei asked, surprised. But to Hinata, only Naruto existed. Hinata held her tape player in both hands and bowed quickly, thrusting it in Naruto's general vicinity and almost hitting him in the chest with it in the process. FF for you, she managed to squeak out. Naruto reached out hesitantly and took the player from her hands. This is, for me. He couldn't contain his disbelief. He could count on one hand all the presents he'd ever received. And now the quietest girl in his class, who had never even spoken to him, not even to say, hi, was giving him her own tape player. He didn't understand it, not at all. Hinata didn't quite trust her voice. So she settled for just nodding vigorously. Why? Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. She stammered. I overheard you say you didn't have one, so. Her voice trailed off and she shut her eyes in a futile attempt to avoid the revulsion that they must be feeling at her shameful confession. Oh why did she not run away? Naruto would certainly hate her now. She had just confessed to deliberately spying on him. There was no way she could possibly justify her actions. The next several seconds were the longest in her life. She dared a peek at her crush, only instead of anger or disgust, which she fully expected, she saw wariness. You heard me say I needed a tape player. And you want to give me yours? Hi. He gave her a long searching look. Just as she was about to fidget nervously, the wariness in his face vanished, replaced by happiness. Suddenly, she was nearly knocked over by an exuberant blonde who had enthusiastically thrown his arms around her. Thank you. All sentient thought ground to a halt. His beautiful eyes, the ones she'd spent hours daydreaming about, were so close. Too close. Hinata felt her cheeks burning. The sudden rush of blood to her face left her stumbling, and on the verge of fainting. Naruto had already overbalanced with his joyful movements. With an extra cheerful shake, he almost sent both of them crashing into the ground. Luckily, Naruto was able to right himself and her at the last moment, saving them from an undignified tumble. But in doing so his face came dangerously close to hers. For 3 full seconds, Hinata could feel his eyelashes brushing against her cheek. Naruto let go almost as quickly as he tackled her, leaving her head spinning. Now that there was distance between them, she remembered to breathe again. Thanks, Hinata. You're the best. And with those parting words, Naruto dashed outside. Iruka smiled at the still blushing girl as straightened his desk. Then he, too, left for lunch. Ah, puppy love. Alone in the classroom, Hinata raised her hand to her still tingling cheek. That night, Hinata dreamt of blue eyes and butterfly kisses. Hinata was the strangest girl he'd ever met. He never noticed her before, but ever since that day, the day she gave him her tape player, he couldn't seem to stop thinking about her. She was nothing like the other girls in his class. The other girls were always together in groups, or in pairs, as if they needed the support of numbers. Hinata was always alone. The other girls loved to gossip and chatter and giggle. Hinata rarely spoke. He'd never heard her laugh either, but he'd caught her smiling once or twice. The other girls were loud and bossy, especially that Ino. Hinata was quiet and timid. Then there was her physical appearance. Most girls wore bright colors and things to make them look pretty. Sakura wore bright red. Ino wore bright purple. Hinata, on the other hand, wore an unflattering plain beige jacket that looked too big for her. And what was wrong with her eyes? They were such a weird color. Not quite silver. Not quite white. Not quite lavender. Weird. But the strangest thing about her eyes was the lack of pupils. Was it a birth defect maybe? Naruto would not learn about bloodlines and related dujutsu until his 3rd year of the academy. She looked like she was blind, but obviously she could see just fine. She was definitely the strangest girl he ever met. And why had she given him a gift? Aside from the Sandaime Hokage, no one had ever given Naruto anything just because. There was always a price. Always. He never received birthday presents, Christmas presents, or any kind of presents. Why had she given him her tape player? The question burned. Was she playing a prank on him? The day after, he almost expected her to yell, "Just kidding. I want my tape player back." Or even worse, for her to accuse him of stealing it. It wouldn't be the first time he was accused of a theft he hadn't committed. But, no, that couldn't be right. Iruka sensei was there when she gave it to him. If she were going to trick him like that, Then she would have waited until there were no witnesses. 2 weeks had gone by since that day. By now, he was sure it wasn't a prank, or something would have happened already. He caught her looking at him more than once, not with cold, hateful eyes, the way the older villagers looked at him. Did she think he was funny looking? But then, every time tried to catch her eye or get her attention, she would look away. It was almost like she was trying to avoid him. Was she afraid of him? Should he talk to her? He didn't understand her at all. Well, whatever her reasons were, Naruto was grateful for the tape player. He used it to practice those memory retention techniques Iruka taught them. Again, and again, and again. He really mastered them. Then he started to use them during Iruka's lessons. He treated Iruka's lecture like another memory exercise. At first, he did it because he was simply bored in class, and doing memory exercises to Iruka's lecture made the class go by faster. He quickly discovered the first side benefit of doing this. No more flying erasers aimed at his head, because he was actually paying attention. He didn't discover the second side benefit until Iruka posted the results of their last exam. To his great surprise, and everyone else's, he aced the last exam. It was the first time he had ever done something well, better than well, instead of coming in dead last. Iruka-sensei had even congratulated him before the entire class. Naruto swelled with pride just remembering it. Of course, he wasn't memorizing whole lectures. But using the memory tricks, he could at least memorize the important points of the lectures quickly. Combine that with actually paying attention, and Naruto was well on his way to academic success. Hinata was genuinely happy. When Naruto did so spectacularly on their last exam, she was so proud of him. She imagined she felt a bit like a proud parent would towards their baby's first steps. She was just bursting with pride. She had always known that Naruto was smart. It upset her whenever the other kids called him stupid, or dead last. To have her belief vindicated felt satisfying. And she was proud of herself. It was such an alien concept, being proud of herself, that it took several days for her to correctly identify the emotion. She, the Hyuga failure, had done something right, for once. She had helped Naruto-kun. And he'd called her the best. Of course, it was just an expression, and he didn't really mean she was actually the best. She was a weakling. How could she possibly be the best at anything? But he had been happy. She had been the one to make him happy with her gift. For someone like her, it was a major accomplishment, almost a minor miracle. She wanted to approach him again to talk, to be his friend. But, what if he didn't want to talk to her? What if he rejected her? Hinata sighed. What little courage she'd found to approach him that day was lost again. Next year, we will be introducing the basics of ninjutsu. Iruka smiled, as he noticed nearly every student sit up a little bit straighter. Shikamaru was still slumped in his seat. Naruto in particular was almost bouncing in his seat with excitement. Ninjutsu was the calling card of shinobi. The first 2 years of the academy were focused on basic taijutsu, basic weaponry, and non-combat ninja techniques, including history of the shinobi nations, basic strategy, and memory retention techniques, much to Naruto's disappointment. To hear the word ninjutsu before 3rd year was always cause for excitement. But before we get to that, we need to learn chakra theory and master the 12 fundamental hand seals used for manipulating chakra. What is chakra? Iruka wrote the word on the blackboard as he asked the question. He turned back to the class. Chakra is the combination of mental, physical, and spiritual energies in the body. Chakra is essential to life. Without it we would die. Chakra is also the essential ingredient to performing any shinobi jutsu. Hand seals are the second ingredient. Hand seals are used to change the chakra within your body into a jutsu. To perform a jutsu, you first summon chakra, then transform it into a jutsu using a hand seal, or a series of hand seals. In an actual fight, you will have to form hand seals while evading enemy attacks, so being able to make hand seals quickly and accurately is critical. The faster you can do the hand seals, the faster you can pull off a jutsu. And in a real fight, fractions of a second can mean the difference between life and death. Before you leave the academy, performing hand seals quickly should be as natural to you as breathing. First we will work on accuracy. Then we will work on speed. Now, I'm going to demonstrate the 12 fundamental hand seals. The trick to remembering them is to say the name aloud while forming the seal with your hands. Practice this until your fingers can move instinctively. Iruka went through hand seals, calling out the names as he demonstrated them. He held each seal for several seconds, so that his students could get a good look at it, before moving on to the next one. Rat, dragon, monkey, ox, snake, bird, tiger, horse, dog, hare, ram, boar. The next hour was spent going around the classroom. Iruka had each student form the hand seals for him. He gently corrected fingers and hand positions as he went along. The key to learning hand seals was repetition, but all the repetition in the world was no good if the seal was formed incorrectly. So Iruka didn't move on until he was certain the student knew the correct finger positions. Doing this didn't actually take much time. A majority of the students, about 70%, Iruka guessed, came from ninja backgrounds, where one or both parents were ninja. Some even came from prominent ninja clans, like the Hyuga and the Uchiha. Those students already knew the 12 hand signs and even had decent speed for academy students. Naruto was not one of those students. Iruka dedicated a good 10 minutes to helping him with his hands. When class let out for lunch, Naruto was cornered by Kenta and Jiro. The two of them came from minor ninja families and took great joy in rubbing Naruto's failures in his face. Hey, dead last, how are you going to be Hokage if you have to take remedial lessons from Iruka-sensei? Kenta laughed. I'm going to be Hokage. Mocked Jiro. You're so slow, I can finish all 12 hand seals before you can even do one. I have a better chance of becoming Hokage than you do. I am going to be Hokage. Naruto shot back. You won't be faster than me for long. Once I get some practice, I bet I can finish all 12 hand seals before you can. Yeah, right, not in a million years. Have fun with your remedial lessons. Loser. With one last shove, the boys ran off to enjoy the rest of their lunch break. Behind a corner, Hinata had witnessed the entire confrontation. Naruto sat down and started to slowly practice his hand seals. His eyes burned with determination. She heard him mutter, I am going to be Hokage. I am going to be faster. I'll be the fastest in the class. I won't give up. Then in a loud voice, monkey. Good luck, Naruto-kun. I know you can do it. A few days later, Naruto had memorized all the hand seals. But his speed still needed work, a lot of work. He didn't understand it. No matter how many hours he practiced, he was still slower than most of his classmates, even the ones from non-ninja families, like Sakura. I'll ask Iruka-sensei today after class. Maybe there's something I'm missing. Iruka-sensei will help me. Iruka-sensei. Iruka looked up from grading papers to see Naruto hovering at the door of his office. Yes, Naruto. Can you give me any tips to help me get faster at making hand seals? I've been practicing really hard, but for some reason I'm still the slowest person in the class. Have a seat. Iruka gestured at the chair in front of his desk and waited for Naruto to get comfortable. How many hours a day are you practicing them? At least 3 hours a day. Sometimes 5. Iruka fought to keep the surprise from his face. That was above and beyond what he expected from most students. Naruto was certainly tenacious. But if that was true, and he had no reason to lie, then Naruto should be one of the fastest in the class. So why wasn't he? Unless, Iruka had never seen Naruto play ninja games with the other children. Could it be? I'm glad you're working so hard, Naruto. It is strange. With that much practice you really should be much faster. Then why am I not? Can you tell me what I'm doing wrong, Iruka-sensei? You're not doing anything wrong. Uruka hesitated. He really didn't want to bring up Naruto's isolation from the other children. But if he were right about this, then it would make a lot of sense. Naruto, have you ever played Cat's Cradle? You mean that string game? Naruto shook his head, looking confused. No, what does that have to do with anything? Have you ever wondered why Cat's Cradle is such a popular children's game in Konoha? Uruka slipped into lecture mode. It's not a very popular game in most places, except the hidden villages. Cat's Cradle isn't just a children's game for fun and passing time. It's actually an early training exercise. Cat's Cradle develops coordination and strengthens the muscles in your fingers and hands. It makes your fingers more nimble and flexible and improves manual dexterity. Most ninja parents teach their children to play the game before they can walk. Children from civilian families will play it, too. Even if their parents don't teach it to them, they learn by playing with other kids. We do live in a ninja village, after all. Think of it like lifting weights and running laps for taijutsu. Even if your taijutsu forms and stances are perfect, without lifting weights and running laps, you'll never be a taijutsu master. Cat's Cradle is like physical conditioning for hand seals, the same way weights and laps are physical conditioning for taijutsu. It's not part of the curriculum because most children have already learned it before they enter the academy. None of the other kids would play with me. Not even when I asked. Naruto said softly. Uruka winced. It was exactly as he'd thought. Naruto was just a kid. He shouldn't be treated like this. Sometimes, I hate being right. Uruka dug around his desk drawers. Now where is it? Ah, there it is. That's all right, Naruto. Uruka smiled and held out a red string. He knotted the ends together to form a loop. Would you like to learn how to play right now? Naruto stuffed the red string into his pocket as he stepped outside the academy. Class was over for the day, but there were still a lot of kids hanging out on the premises. Some kids, like Kiba, stayed behind for extra training and after-school sparring with other kids. Some kids, like Sakura and Ino, stayed just to gossip and hang out with their friends. Others, like Shikamaru, stayed to avoid chores at home. Although Naruto did not know this, Hinata stayed behind for two reasons: to avoid her family and to catch an extra glimpse of him. Naruto thought back to his meeting with Uruka. Uruka had explained that there were two different versions of Cat's Cradle, a civilian version and a ninja version. The ninja version had about 30 extra steps and was more complex. Also, the ninja version had an advanced level, with 2 strings and required 3 players. After playing several rounds of Cat's Cradle, the ninja version, of course, Uruka had told him to find a friend to play it with. Flashback. I think you've got the hang of it, Naruto. Keep practicing, okay? If you can find a friend to play this with, come back here, and I'll teach you to play the advanced level of Cat's Cradle, since we'll need 3 people for that. The 3-player version is actually quite challenging, and fun. The 2 strings together form intricate designs and a single mistake can tangle you in knots very quickly. Flashback. Naruto frowned. Find a friend to play this with. Yeah, right. No one had ever played with him before. He didn't see how that was going to change anytime soon. But he really wanted to play again. It had been fun playing with Uruka-sensei. He wanted to play it again, and not just because it would help his speed with hand seals. Unfortunately, he didn't think the other kids would play with him. I won't give up before I try. I'll ask around anyways. No way, man. Why would I want to play a baby game with you? Asked Kiba. He grinned, fangs showing. Want to spar instead? I'll go easy on you. What are you, 3? That's such a boring game. Ino flounced away. Ew, get away from me. You probably have cooties. Sakura ran to rejoin Ino. Cat's Cradle. It's so troublesome, drawled Shikamaru, lying on his back. I just want to watch the clouds and take a nap. Ask me some other time. Hinata wavered with indecision. She'd heard Naruto asking around for a partner to play Cat's Cradle with. She didn't understand why he wanted to play a children's game. But if he wanted to play, she would play. She wanted desperately to go up to him and volunteer to be his partner. But she just couldn't. That was much too forward for the timid girl. If only he would ask her. Ask me, please. I'm here. He didn't see her. She saw him turn to leave. Ask me, please. She took one small step forward. Naruto growled in frustration. He'd been shot down, not once, not twice, but 4 times. 4. He might as well go home. There was no one else he could ask. A small sound and a flash of beige at the corner of his eye caught his attention. What was that? I could have sworn. Wait. Is that Hinata? In an alternate time and place, Naruto never noticed Hinata standing there, so he never thought to ask her, and he never found a partner for Cat's Cradle. Instead, Naruto worked hard to improve his speed little by little through sheer repetition on his own, and with a few more rounds of Cat's Cradle with Iruka-sensei. However, Iruka had other responsibilities and couldn't dedicate a great deal of time for one student, no matter how fond he was of Naruto. He would remain in the bottom quartile of the class, and never reach his full potential. One small action at the right time, at the right place, would change the world. In this time and place, Naruto had just spent 2 weeks wondering about Hinata and watching her, so he noticed her standing there, and thus, thought to ask her. Her small act of kindness gave him hope. Here was a person who didn't hate him. Otherwise, she wouldn't have given her tape player to him. Dare he? Should he risk being shot down yet again? I'll ask her. She might say, no, like all the rest, but she might say, yes. Maybe. She's so strange, normal people don't like me. She's not normal at all. She's different, so maybe she'll be my friend. Hinata. Right. Naruto shuffled his feet a little. Would you? I mean, I know it's kind of stupid, but would you like to play Cat's Cradle with me? Hi. Really? That's awesome. Come on. Naruto was nervous as they sat on the front steps of the academy to play. No. Scratch that. He was beyond nervous. He was about to have a full-blown panic attack. The training that Cat's Cradle was supposed to give him was irrelevant. That was neither here nor there. He almost couldn't believe she'd said, yes. It was the first time anyone his age agreed to play with him. Playing together was the first step to making friends, right? Friends played together. This was his chance. If he made a good enough impression, then maybe she'd agree to play with him again. That could lead to real friendship, something he'd only dreamed about. I can't mess this up. I have to do this right. Naturally, the moment he decided not to mess up, he ruined it. Naruto was so flustered that it didn't take more than a few steps into Cat's Cradle, the ninja version, of course, before the red string was one giant knot. He looked down at it in dismay. Hinata gently removed the string from his hands and worked on straightening the string out. It's okay, Naruto-kun. Would you like TT to try again? Naruto could only nod. He looped the string twice around his fingers and held his hands out to try again. 3 giant knots later, disaster struck. Somehow, he didn't know how, somehow he managed to tangle the string around both their hands, inadvertently, tying their hands together. Now they were stuck. Naruto swore internally. Idiot. I'm such an idiot. My big chance to make a friend, and I go and ruin it. She'll never play with me again. He glanced at his partner, only to see that her face was bright red. She was nice to me, and now she's angry. Why can't I do anything right? I'm sorry, he said somberly without his usual volume. I'm sorry I'm such a horrible player. I'm sorry I made you angry. Damn it. I really messed up. I'm always messing up. No wonder nobody wants to be friends with me. Heck, I wouldn't want to be friends with me, either. Hinata, who was blushing and not red-faced with anger, was startled by the misery on his face and the self-loathing in his voice. She rushed to reassure him, and for the first time, spoke straight from the heart, without thinking. No, I'm not mad. I want to be your friend. Do you mean it? Naruto looked at her in wonder. Hi. You want to be my friend? He asked again, just to be sure. When she nodded, pure joy erupted within him. The rush made him giddy. His heart felt strangely full. And for reasons he couldn't explain, he wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. She had accepted all his mistakes without derision. She wasn't angry. She accepted him, as he was. He had a friend. Thank you, he whispered at last. Had she done the right thing? Hinata wondered. She had quickly realized that he was a beginner at Cat's Cradle, but she didn't mind. Except Naruto had looked so upset. And the more upset he got, the more mistakes he made, which only made him more upset. Hinata was intimately familiar with those feelings. So she simply helped correct his mistakes. When their hands were tied together, she could only blush. And then, he was so hurt and miserable. The desperate need to comfort him made her bold. She would never have spoken so recklessly and impulsively otherwise. Now, although there was a sheen of tears in his eyes, his joy was unmistakable. Had she done the right thing? Yes. Naruto smiled at her. Hinata smiled back. All right. Naruto was back to his confident, excitable self. Let's go find Iruka-sensei to help us get untied. Then we can play again. I'll get it this time for sure. Naruto jumped to his feet. He was in such a hurry that he forgot to account for the law of inertia, which states, an object at rest tends to stay at rest and an object in motion tends to stay in motion, unless acted upon by an unbalanced force. When Naruto leapt to his feet, he became a moving object that wanted to keep moving. Hinata, who was quite comfortable where she was, became the stationary object that wanted to stay still. Unfortunately, the stationary object and the moving object were still tied together. The result was painful collision. Hinata was forcibly pulled up from a sitting position, while Naruto's upward leap was forcibly reversed, he was jerked backwards. Their heads collided with a resounding crack. Dazed and disoriented, Hinata opened her eyes and promptly forgot about the pain in her head. She had landed on top of Naruto with their hands trapped between their chests. More importantly, they were face to face, and so close that their noses were touching. And all she could see were blue eyes. Hinata instantly turned the color of a ripe tomato. It was too much for the poor girl. Oh no, I'm going to faint. When Iruka arrived on the scene a few minutes later, he found a Naruto sitting on the steps with an unconscious Hinata lying beside him. Her head was pillowed on his lap. Their hands were still tied together by red string. Iruka raised an eyebrow. Do I want to know what happened here? Ah, Iruka-sensei. Hinata and I were playing Cat's Cradle and we got stuck, Naruto said in embarrassment. When I jumped up to find you, I knocked our heads together. I think I must have hit her head too hard because Hinata passed out. Can you help us out? That night, Hinata fell asleep with a smile on her face. She, the weakest Hyuga, had done it again, something right. Maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as big a failure as she thought. Maybe she was able to change, a little bit. Hinata dreamt of blue eyes and Eskimo kisses. Indirect kiss. Life was good for Uzumaki Naruto. For once in his miserable life, things were going his way. He and Hinata had spent hours playing Cat's Cradle every day after class. After his nerves settled, Naruto was able to concentrate on the game. He mastered it quickly. To Hinata's secret disappointment, their hands did not get entangled again. They had even played a few rounds of the advanced level of Cat's Cradle with Iruka-sensei. In addition to the game, Naruto continued to practice hand seals on his own for several hours every night. Within a month his speed had dramatically improved. Within 2, he had lived up to his boast of being the fastest at forming hand seals in the class. Naruto grinned. Just yesterday Iruka-sensei had congratulated him on his progress in front of the whole class. Naruto had managed to tie with one Uchiha Sasuke, who was not pleased about sharing his pedestal. For the first time in his life, Naruto was the center of admiration, albeit grudging admiration, among his classmates. Iruka-sensei was proud of him, too. The positive attention felt absolutely amazing. He'd never been able to gain any sort of positive attention before. The best he'd been able to get was negative attention, as the butt of jokes or in the form scolding from Iruka-sensei for pulling pranks in class. It hadn't mattered though. The negative attention kept his loneliness at bay, and kept the cold, hateful eyes of the villagers from erasing his existence. For a little while, at least, the pain would diminish. Becoming a clown and a prankster wasn't so bad if it meant someone would really see him, really look at him and know that he was alive. Naruto felt wonderful. Praise from Iruka, grudging respect from his classmates, and gentle support from Hinata, it warmed his soul. Nothing could be better. Naruto, who craved any attention whether it was positive or negative, was simply addicted. Even after a full day, the warmth lingered. It formed an invisible barrier between him and the pain of loneliness, and even muted the nasty stares of the villagers. In an alternate time and place, Naruto became a clown and a prankster because no matter how hard he tried or how hard he worked, he was still the dead last at the academy. He was not stupid. He just wasn't given the tools to succeed. Any attention was better than no attention. In this time and place, Naruto, with a little help, had achieved some academic success and loved the praise and recognition that came with it. Now that he knew it was possible, and it was even better than he imagined, Naruto was determined to do it again. He would work hard and pay attention in class. He was going to be the best damned ninja he could be. Who wanted to be laughed at when he could be admired and respected? He wasn't going to be a clown. That kind of recognition was unpalatable now that he'd had a taste of real recognition. And so, the world changed. Well, Naruto thought for a moment and grinned mischievously. He could still pull a few pranks every now and then for old time's sake. Life was good, but there was one thing that could make it better, aside from becoming the Hokage, Hinata. Although he spent the day with her just yesterday, he already missed his friend. His friend. Just thinking the word in his head made him giddy. Sure, Hinata was a strange girl. But that only made her more special in his eyes. They had talked a lot while playing cat's cradle. Okay, so he had talked a lot while playing cat's cradle. Closing parenthesis. Naruto was surprised at some of the things he discovered. She was a lot of fun to be with. She had a great sense of humor, when he could get her to stop being so proper, and she was a great listener. When she listened, Naruto felt like he had her whole attention. He felt number. He knew he was important to her. When he was with her, the pain of loneliness, of being hated for reasons he didn't understand, wasn't just diminished, it completely melted away. She was his precious friend. He couldn't wait until the weekend was over and he could see Hinata again. Hinata dreaded weekends. They couldn't go by fast enough for her. She knew she was an embarrassment to her clan. The fact that she was sent to the ninja academy for public instruction instead of being privately trained by her father or a senior Hyuga clansman was proof enough. When her father sent her to the academy, he had washed his hands of her ninja training. Hinata had inadvertently overheard him speaking to one of the elders. Flashback. Are you certain you want to send Hinata to the ninja academy? Asked Hyuga Hideki. As an elder of the Hyuga main branch, he was a traditionalist and always questioned the changes in tradition. Hinata has shown very little aptitude in her training. I will not waste my time on training her. She can attend the ninja academy and learn the ninja ways there. Hinata is the Hyuga family's successor. When she graduates the academy, she will become a genin. Missions that genin undertake have the possibility of death. If she dies on a mission, then she is a defect. A weak defect who dies on a genin-ranked mission is not needed by the Hyuga. And there is still Hanabi. As you say, Hiyashi-sama. Flashback. Knowing that her father thought so little of her hurt deeply. Even though she was an embarrassment, sent away to the academy for her ninja training, Hinata was still the Hyuga heiress. This meant that weekends were spent with her father's advisors, never her father, training to become the next clan head. Her Hyuga teachers were stern taskmasters. A nod of approval was rare. Success was expected as a matter of course. Errors were met with harsh reprimands. They were nothing like Iruka sensei. She was drilled for hours in politics, diplomacy, etiquette, economics, and law, all things necessary for an accomplished clan head. That wasn't so bad. In fact, Hinata was naturally adept in those subjects. She rather enjoyed them. While her teachers never praised her progress, at least they never criticized her either. It was her other lessons, the ones for Jiyuken, the Hyuga gentle fist style, that she dreaded. She could never seem to meet the expectations set for her in Jiyuken. Her Byakugan had trouble seeing all the tenketsu, the chakra points in the chakra circulatory system. Her chakra control wasn't good enough. Her stance was weak. Her speed was lacking. Her defense was poor. Against other Hyuga children she was easily defeated. For the air, that was simply unacceptable. She cringed at her terrible performance in Jiyuken. She rubbed at the painful bruises that dotted her arms and legs. Her Jiyuken instructors, and her sparring opponents, did not hold back. Ever. Training sessions in Jiyuken were always painful. Often excessively painful, Hinata thought. The one bright spot to her weekends was Hanabi. Hinata adored her baby sister. The toddler was just starting to speak in full sentences. Hanabi was the only person in her family who was always happy to see her. Onisan. Play with Hanabi-chan. Her mistakes and failures didn't mean anything to the child. To her, Hinata was not the family disappointment. To her, Hinata was simply her big sister. The one who played with her, the one who always made time for her, the one who sang her songs and tucked her in at night. Training in the Byakugan and in Jiyuken typically started at the age of 3. In just 1 year, Hanabi's training would start. And Hinata was afraid, so very afraid, that when it did, she would lose Hanabi. She was afraid that Hanabi would become like the rest of her family. Cold, unfeeling, and intolerant of weakness. Intolerant of Hinata. The thought of losing Hanabi made her want to cry. She pushed those thoughts aside as she headed for the family dojo. It was time for Jiyuken training. Her heart sank when she saw the person standing beside her instructor. NN Neji Nissan. Neji glared. You will spar with Neji today. Let us hope you have improved. Itadakimasu. Naruto slurped happily away at his ramen. After the Hokage, Iruka sensei and Hinata, old man Tuki, who was the owner and chef of the Ichiraku ramen stand, and his daughter Ayame were his favorite people in Konoha. They had always been kind to him, treating him just like any other customer. Most of the other food sellers refused to serve him. If they did, they went out of their way to make the experience as unpleasant as possible. The familiar atmosphere was relaxing. While he ate, Naruto imagined that Tuki was like a gruff uncle and Ayame was like an older cousin to him. They always made time to chat with him and ask him how he was doing, even when they were busy. Speaking of which, so Naruto, when are you going to introduce us to your new friend? Asked Tuki, as he worked. The knife in his hand flashed as he chopped green onions for garnish. You wanted to meet Hinata-chan. Of course, we do. Silly. Ayame rolled her eyes and lightly bopped him on the head with a long wooden spoon. You've only been talking non-stop about her for the last 2 months. I feel like I know her already. We'd love to meet her. Her father nodded in agreement. Any friend of our best customer is always welcome here. Thanks. Naruto beamed. We usually hang out and train after class until she has to go home for dinner with her family. I think we can skip training on Monday and come straight here after class instead. We've been working really hard, so skipping every now and then won't hurt. That sounds wonderful. We'll be expecting you, so don't forget. Admonished Ayame. I won't. Naruto lifted his bowl and quickly drank the broth. Gochaizu-sama. Naruto hopped off his stool, but Tuki stopped him before he could leave. Wait, Naruto. Would you be interested in any candy today? Our supplier made a mistake with our order. Instead of delivering a case of spices, he delivered a case of Konoha Bakuden. But he won't take it back or exchange it for the spices we originally ordered. So we're offering it to our customers. Naruto's eyes lit up at the words, Konoha Bakuden, and he almost drooled. Konoha Bakuden, or Kono Baku for short, were small round balls made with a crispy pastry shell and dark chocolate filling. They were a very popular sweet in Konoha. He had only eaten the treats a handful of times before. He didn't often have much money to splurge on sweets. And even when he did, none of the candy stores in the village would serve him. The Sandaime Hokage would sometimes give him a small bag on the rare occasions he visited. And once, he'd begged a few off of Choji. Really? Naruto almost danced with excitement. You have Kono Baku for me. You're the best, Oji-san. Later that night, after closing their restaurant, Ayame turned to her father. That was a very nice thing you did for him, father. There was no need to say who him was. There was no mistake with our supplier. You ordered a case of Kono Baku on purpose. Maybe I did, Tsuki said gruffly. He's a good boy. He deserves to have a few treats every now and then. No, father, Ayame gave her father a long searching look. Naruto doesn't just deserve to have a few treats every now and then. He deserves a lot more than that. The way everyone treats him, it's despicable. Why do they do that? Ayame-chan, Tsuki sighed. I can't tell you. Just know that it's not his fault, it's nothing he did. This has something to do with the Kyuubi, doesn't it? Who told you that? He asked in alarm. No one told me, father. I swear. Sometimes you must think I'm still a baby. I'm not stupid. Then how? I remember when the Kyuubi attacked, she said softly. I was only 5, but I still remember that day, at least a little. There's a big secret about Naruto, isn't there? He was born on that day. And almost everyone hates him for it. I don't understand it, but I know it has to do with the Kyuubi. You're too smart for your own good, Ayame-chan, Tsuki said ruefully. I still can't tell you. And you mustn't say anything about this to anyone else. Do you understand? Her father was absolutely serious. She could tell. She couldn't remember if he'd ever been more serious. This was important. Ayame nodded. I won't, father. I promise. They worked quietly for a few more minutes. Then, father. Yes, Ayame-chan, let's order more treats for Naruto in the future. Tsuki smiled softly. I am so proud of you, my daughter. After putting in some target practice, Naruto wondered if he should just go home. It was a beautiful day, not too warm, not too cold. The air was crisp, and the sun was shining. The day was just perfect. Naruto decided against it. Instead, he made his way to the Konoha Public Park. He would enjoy the rest of the day at their bench. Well, it wasn't really theirs. It was a public park, after all. But since the bench was off the beaten path, not many people used it. Naruto and Hinata had used it as their spot for playing cat's cradle. The bag of Kono Baku balls rattled in his hip pouch and Naruto was sorely tempted to eat them right away. No, I'll wait. I want to share them with Hinata-chan. He'd never shared anything with a friend before. He had only watched enviously as other kids shared toys and snacks with each other, but never with him. As he neared his destination, Naruto was disappointed to see that someone was already there. He frowned. Whoever it was probably wouldn't want to share the bench with him. As he got closer, he could make out more details. It was a child, probably about his age, sitting curled with her arms around her knees. And that person was crying. In fact, Naruto thought that person was strangely familiar. He or she reminded him of Hinata. Then with a start, Naruto realized that it was Hinata who for once was not wearing her large beige jacket. Instead, she was wearing a black t-shirt and black training pants. Without the coat, she looked smaller and more vulnerable. And, were those bruises on her arms? Naruto rushed forward in alarm. She was crying and she was hurt. Hinata-chan. What happened? Are you okay? Hinata had been thoroughly defeated by her cousin Neji. Her instructor watched impassively as the cousins sparred, if it could be called sparring. Hinata never stood a chance. Neji had the most potential of any Hyuga in generations. After losing painfully yet again, and getting dropped by a right hook to her temple that had gotten past her guard, Hinata lay dazed and panting on the tatami mats of the dojo. When it became obvious that Hinata could no longer continue, her instructor finally spoke. Flashback. It seems there has been no improvement. You failed to land even single hit on Neji. Your guard is so weak as to be non-existent. Next week, we shall attempt to improve it. Pain is an excellent motivator. Perhaps this shall encourage you to work harder. You are dismissed. He did not help her up. Hinata heard only one set of footsteps leaving the dojo. Surprised, she turned her head to find that Neji had remained. It will not matter whether or not you work harder. We are all bound to our fates. I was born to serve the Hyuga main branch. You were born weak, and you will never reach my level. It is futile to try. You should just give up right now. Then he left, as well. Alone at last, Hinata succumbed to tears. She rolled over and forced herself to stand up. It hurt to move. It hurt to breathe. She tried so hard. Why was she still so weak? Was Neji right? Should she give up and accept her failures? All of a sudden, the Hyuga estate felt suffocating. Within its walls, she was constantly criticized, never accepted. She did not want to be there. If only she were a bird, she would fly away and never come back. Flashback. Hinata did not know how she got to the park and to their bench. She did not remember leaving the Hyuga compound. In this place, where she held happy memories, she let herself cry. If only she could be more like Naruto. Almost as if the thought conjured him, he was suddenly there and full of concern. Hinata-chan. What happened? Are you okay? Naruto could have kicked himself. What a stupid thing to ask. She was obviously not okay. Hinata's head snapped up in surprise. She tried unsuccessfully to dry her tears and hide the evidence of her distress. Naruto could see that, in addition to the set of bruises on her arms, her lower lip was split and there was another bruise forming on her right cheek. Suddenly he was angry. Who had hurt her? Who had hurt his friend? Hinata-chan. Naruto softly repeated the question, what happened to you? Hinata looked away shamefully. She couldn't bear to look him in the eyes. It was nothing, Naruto-kun. JJ just SPSP sparring and TRTR training in Jiyuken. You look awful. Hinata winced. Naruto spoke fiercely, sparring and training is what we do in class. Whatever it was that you just did was not sparring. Who hurt you? Hinata-chan. Neji Nissan. BB but it wasn't his FF fault. IGG got HH hurt because I am TT2 weak. IDD don't deserve to be a Hyuga. Why am I always SS so weak? Hinata burst into tears again. She had just confessed her weakness to Naruto. She hadn't wanted to tell him, but he deserved the truth. Surely, now that he knew how weak she truly was, he would no longer want to be her friend. The last 2 months had been wonderful. But she had known it couldn't last. Why would he want the weak, little girl that even her family rejected? She stiffened when she felt a pair of arms go around her. Naruto was hugging her. If she hadn't been in so much shock, she would have blushed. You are not weak. You are smart and strong. Whoever told you that is either blind or an idiot, he's probably both. BB but, Hinata protested, everyone in my FF family says SS so. I'm the FF failure AA and the WW weakest. The Hyuga DD don't need someone LL like me. I should GG give you up. Did they really say that to you? Naruto asked softly. With every word that came out of her mouth, Naruto felt the burning anger in his chest grow. He was furious. It was one thing to put him down. He'd been put down his entire life. It was another thing entirely to disparage Hinata. That was unforgivable. Hi, she whispered. Hinata fully expected him to let go in disgust. Instead, his arms tightened around her and he gave her a little shake. Bullshit. Listen to me, Hinata-chan. You are smart. You understand Aruka-sensei's lectures right away, and sometimes you even explain them to me better than he does. You are strong. You beat Kiba and Choji during last week's class spar. Your family and this Neji are just blind and stupid if they can't see that. Hinata looked at him in wonder. Even after all that, all the proof to the contrary, Naruto still believed in her. He still believed she was a worthy friend. But Naruto wasn't finished yet. You don't need to listen to what they say. People have told me that I'm a waste of space. Hinata gasped in horror. But that doesn't matter, because someday, I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm going to be Hokage. I don't give up. If I did, I would have died a long time ago. And someday, you'll be the strongest Hyuga that ever was. You're going to prove your stupid family wrong and make them eat their words. You are my best friend. And you will not give up. In another time and place, Hinata had no one to comfort her, to dry her tears, to encourage her. She had no one who would believe in her. And so, she faltered. The mind is a powerful, inexplicable thing. Because she believed she was weak, she became weak. It would take many years for her to overcome this block and reach her true potential. In this time and place, Hinata had Naruto, who honestly believed she was strong, and who did not know how to give up. Naruto believed in her. Naruto never quit. And if he said she was strong, maybe, just maybe, she was. And so, with his encouragement, Hinata would get up and try again. She had Naruto, who would always be there to pick her up if she fell. She had Naruto, who would always cheer the loudest for every small success that she achieved. She had Naruto, who had just called her his best friend. Hinata could hardly believe she could be the best at anything, yet, here she was, Naruto's best friend. Naruto's best friend was not a failure. She would not let him down. And so, the world changed. Thank you, Hinata sniffed. This time they were happy tears. When she could speak again, there was a new fire in her eyes. You're right, Naruto-kun. I'm not done fighting yet. Next time, I'll hit Neji Nissan BB back. That Neji won't know what hit him. Naruto grinned, relieved to see that Hinata was feeling better. They sat side by side in comfortable silence, just enjoying each other's presence and the beautiful weather, until Naruto remembered his surprise. Oh, I almost forgot. This will definitely cheer you up, he grinned, revealing a new unopened bag of Konoha Bakuden. Kono Baku. I was going to share these with you after school on Monday. But I think you could use some right now. What do you say? Sure. Hinata wasn't going to turn down free candy. What 7-year-old in his or her right mind would turn down delicious Kono Baku candy? The two children happily ate their Kono Baku. To Naruto, it was the best Kono Baku he'd ever tasted, all because he was sharing it with his best friend. To Hinata, the candy tasted even better than all the gourmet candies imported from the best confectionaires in the world. It was a little-known secret that most Hyuga had a sweet tooth. Hence, the Hyuga estate was well stocked with the best candies money could buy, all because she was sharing it with her best friend. Soon the bag of treats was nearly empty. Hinata and Naruto both reached for the last piece at the same time. Hinata jerked her hand back when she felt Naruto's hand brush against hers. She blushed lightly and then looked down in disappointment. There was only one piece left. Proper etiquette demanded that she leave the last piece for Naruto. It was his bag of candy, after all. So he should get the last piece. Would you like the last piece, Hinata-chan? Naruto asked considerately. No, thank you. UCC can have it, Naruto-kun. Naruto looked thoughtful. We should share. I know. Before Hinata could ask how he intended for them to share, Naruto picked up the last piece and took a bite. He bit off half the Konobaku ball. And before Hinata could stop him, Naruto popped the other half of the candy into her mouth. Did he just? Hinata couldn't even finish the thought in her head. Her eyes went impossibly wide. Her heart pounded so loudly she was surprised he didn't hear it. The light blush she wore, from their accidental touch just a few moments before, erupted into a flaming red bloom. That was delicious, wasn't it? Naruto asked. He turned to look at her and caught sight of her red face. Ah, Hinata-chan, are you okay? Your face is flushed. That Neji must have hurt you more than we thought. Let's take you to the doctor right away. We have to make sure it's nothing serious. Hinata couldn't answer him because she was doing her level best not to faint. She succeeded. Barely. That night, Hinata dreamt of chocolate-filled candies and indirect kisses. Healing kiss. Hinata sighed as she slid gratefully into the furrow of her own private bath. Most of the time, she did not care for the luxuries and amenities that her family's wealth afforded. But relaxing in the furrow and letting the hot water soothe away her aches and troubles after a long day of training was simply divine. It was the one vice she didn't think she could live without. As was her custom, Hinata spent this time in deep contemplation. The last 3 years of her life had been hard, but with Naruto's help, she had persevered. The day after she and Naruto had shared their first bag of Konobaku, she still blushed thinking about it. Naruto had dragged off her to see Iruka-sensei in his home. Flashback. It was Sunday. Hinata had agreed to meet Naruto after her training in the Hyuga arts was over for the day. But what were they doing here? She looked around at the residential neighborhood where Naruto had taken them. The single homes and apartment buildings were well kept. The flower beds were well tended, the fences were brightly painted, and the streets were clean and in good repair. Several buildings down, she could see a few civilian children were playing ball. While not as upscale as the neighborhood where the old clans resided, it was not shabby either. Anyo, Naruto-kun. She was tugging on his sleeve to get his attention. What are we doing here? We're here to see Iruka-sensei, he said, as if that explained everything. But Hinata was only more bewildered. Naruto walked up to a modest duplex and knocked confidently on the door. Iruka-sensei. Iruka-sensei. Are you home? We need help. Iruka had been enjoying a quiet Sunday afternoon with iced tea and a good book when the knocking started. He sighed at the interruption. At this rate, he was never going to finish that book. He opened the door to find his favorite student on the doorstep with Hinata in tow. Hello, Naruto, Hinata. What can I do for you? Ever since Iruka realized the villagers were actively abusing and mistreating Naruto, he thought long and hard about what actions he could take, if any. In the end, he had decided against informing the Hokage, who probably knew already. Not much got past the Sandame, he was the professor, for a reason. Instead, Iruka gave Naruto the next best thing, an open invitation to visit him at any time, night or day, and for any reason. Iruka figured correctly that his support and acknowledgement would mean more to Naruto than punishing a few villagers ever could. Punishing a few villagers would not change anything, it would not stop them or others from mistreating him again. But knowing that there was Iruka, someone besides the Sandame who was often busy, who would help him, advise him, and care for him if he were ever in trouble, that meant the world to Naruto. However, Iruka had not expected to see Naruto again so soon. He had been doing much better in class. So what was the problem? You have to help us, Iruka-sensei. Hinata's family is awful. They say horrible things about her that are just not true. And, several minutes later, after much loud, indignant ranting from Naruto and much blushing from Hinata, who was absolutely mortified, what would her father say if he ever found out she had exposed their family affairs to a non-Hyuga? What would he do to her? Iruka finally got the gist of it. Naruto was mad. The Hyuga thought Hinata was weak. Naruto was mad. The Hyuga were beating her and calling it sparring. And, hey, did you know? Naruto was mad. Naruto wanted to help. Hinata needed real training. Then she was going to show them exactly which Hyuga was weak because it certainly wasn't Hinata. Naruto needed extra training, too, because he was going to help her, and he was going to be the future Hokage. Naruto would be Hinata's real sparring partner, and not some punk who just liked to bully his younger cousin. Iruka leaned back in his seat and thought carefully for a few moments. He was a bit surprised at how fiercely Naruto had defended Hinata. Unfortunately, he was not at all surprised at the Hyuga training methods. He had suspected as much. Taijutsu was never one of my strengths. But there is someone I could introduce you to. Not only is Maida the foremost taijutsu master in Konoha, but he's also worked extensively with other Hyuga in the past. He's very, passionate about his field of expertise. I know he'd be more than happy to help you. Naruto looked like Christmas had come early. Flashback. Iruka was as good as his word. He had introduced them to one Maida, the self-proclaimed green beast of Konoha, and one of the best taijutsu masters in all of Fire Country. Flashback. I can see clearly that these two are in the springtime of their youth. Yosh. I will fan the flames of their youth and they will be the best taijutsu fighters of their generation, or I shall run 5,000 laps around Konoha. Flashback. Passionate was not the word she would have chosen to describe him. Insane was more like it. But she and Naruto soon discovered that as quirky as Guy-sensei could be, he was also one of the best taijutsu instructors that ever existed. Hinata and Naruto joined Guy-sensei's workouts at 5 a.m. every morning. They would spend at least 2 hours training with him before going to class. The first hour was usually dedicated to physical conditioning, geared towards increasing their stamina, including laps, push-ups, sit-ups and even more laps. During the second hour, Guy-sensei helped them with their taijutsu. He taught Naruto the basics of Goken. Though Guy-sensei was not a Hyuga, he had worked and sparred with many Hyuga in the past. With his passion for anything related to taijutsu, he had learned as much about Gyuken as it was possible for a non-Hyuga to learn, which was quite a substantial amount. Hinata was certain that if the Hyuga elders on the clan council were to discover exactly how much Guy-sensei knew of their fighting art, well, Furious wouldn't even begin to cover it. In just the first month, Guy-sensei had been able to teach Hinata more about Gyuken than she had learned in an entire year from her weekend Gyuken instructors. And much to Hinata's great relief, his teaching methods were significantly less painful. Soon, Rock Lee, a third-year academy student, joined them in their morning routine. Lee had malformed chakra coils, and could not mold chakra for jutsu. But he was still determined to become a ninja, it was his dream. In many ways, his refusal to give up on his dream reminded Hinata of Naruto. He took to Goken like a fish to water. Guy-sensei was his idol. Lee and Naruto quickly became good friends and a friendly rivalry sprang up between them. Both boys were determined to outdo each other, whether it was who could run the most laps or do the most push-ups or eat the most ramen in one sitting. Naruto won that last one. If they could compete over it they would. Hinata found it impossible to keep up with the boys, stamina freaks that they were, in their morning workouts. Before Hinata could despair, Guy-sensei, who was much more intuitive than most people gave him credit for, pulled her aside and told her not to compare herself to the boys. Flashback. You are Hinata, Guy-sensei said seriously. Hi, Guy-sensei. Hinata wondered if he was going to give her another speech about fanning the flames of youth. No, I do not think you understand. You are Hinata. You are not Naruto. And you are not Lee. You should not compare yourself to either of them, just as they should not compare themselves to you. We each have our strengths and weaknesses, which is why most ninja are placed on teams, so that their teammates will support them, just as they support their teammates. No one is without weaknesses. Naruto and Lee will always have more stamina than you. They will always be physically stronger, as well. This is fact. Hinata shrank into herself, ashamed. Was her new teacher telling her she was weak? But, she tried so hard. Was it not enough? Before she could despair further, Guy-sensei continued. But, and listen to me carefully, Hinata, Naruto will also never have your chakra control and Lee will never have your flexibility. You are all unique. If you must compare yourself to someone, as a gauge of your progress, then you should compare yourself to you. IDD don't understand, Guy-sensei, Hinata confessed. You should compare yourself to the Hinata of yesterday. If you can run one more step than you ran yesterday, if your chakra control is just a little bit better than it was yesterday, if you can fight harder and faster than you fought yesterday, if you can dodge today what you could not dodge yesterday, and block what you could not block yesterday, then the Hinata you are today is a better, stronger person than the Hinata you were. If you do this, then I am proud to call you my precious student. Guy-sensei is proud of me. Hinata was almost overwhelmed. The last person to be proud of her had been her mother. But it had been so long since her passing that the memory was fuzzy and indistinct. Could she do all that? Could she be better than she was yesterday? Could she win against the person she was yesterday? Yes. Hi, Guy-sensei. In true Meta Guy fashion, Guy smiled, showing gleaming white teeth, and gave her a thumbs up. Flashback. Hinata took Guy's words to heart, and applied the principle to her Jiyuken training. She set small goals at every training session, including her weekend training sessions with the Hyuga. She stopped comparing herself to her cousin Neji because she was Hinata, not Neji. She stopped comparing herself to her other sparring opponents, too. And most importantly, she stopped losing heart whenever she lost a match because it didn't matter if she lost, as long as she didn't lose to herself. Gradually, almost imperceptibly, she improved. Flashback. I will not stop until I hit Neji at least once. Hinata repeated the mantra as she forced herself to get up yet again. Her body was begging her to quit. It was too tired, too spent. It wanted to collapse and recover. But, I will not stop until I hit Neji at least once. And then, she did. It was just a glancing blow to his shoulder, and more luck than anything else. It was not even a vital hit. But that didn't matter. She did it. Perhaps you have been paying attention, after all, her instructor told her, as she lay panting on the floor of the dojo. That is all for today. I wonder whether you can repeat this feat, or not. Neji waited until he was gone. Although Hinata could not see her cousin's expression from her position on the floor, she could feel his fury. His voice could have frozen magma. Lady Luck will not favor you a second time. You are still the weakest of the Hyuga. It has been determined by fate. You will not succeed again. Flashback. Neji was wrong. Hinata did succeed again, and many more times since that day. I will not stop until I can hit Neji twice. I will not stop until I can hit Neji 3 times. I will not stop until I can avoid being hit for 5 minutes. I will not stop until I can avoid being hit for 10 minutes. I will not stop until I can avoid being hit for 20 minutes. I will not stop until I can perform Hake Rokujuyansho, 8 divination signs, 64 palms of the hand, 3 seconds faster than before. 5 seconds faster. 7 seconds faster. Hinata sighed ruefully. Neji could still wipe the floor with her. But each time, she made it harder and harder for him to do it. She refused to go down without a fight. A small vindictive part of her danced with glee each time she was forced to spar with him because she intended to make each victory hurt. After 3 years of Guy-sensei's regimen, she actually used a light version of his regimen. Naruto and Lee used the full version. She had a lot more stamina than the normal Kunoichi. Neji had to work to defeat her now. In a few more years, at the rate she was improving, his victories would no longer be so certain. Today was a good day. Today, not only had she won against the Hinata of yesterday, she had also won against her Hyuga sparring opponent. First time ever, she had won against another Hyuga. Hyuga Katsu was from the Hyuga branch house, and unlike Neji, he did not appear to bear her any ill will. Unlike Neji, he was not a prodigy, he was considered to be of average skill in Juyuken for his age. Katsu was also 2 years her senior. She had managed to beat a Hyuga. Her instructor had even unbent enough to give her backhanded praise, though his expression remained impassive. Flashback. You have made some progress. Continue as you have and you may yet become semi-proficient in Juyuken. Perhaps when you become clan head, you will not horribly embarrass the Hyuga, after all. Flashback. Hinata realized with a start that the water was cold. She had been so lost in her thoughts that she didn't notice how late it had become. She stepped out of the afuro and wrapped a fluffy robe around herself. It was time for bed. She needed to be up before 5 a.m. for her morning training. She couldn't wait to tell Naruto and Guy-sensei all about her first victory against Hyuga Katsu. They would be so proud. The next morning, Guy-sensei, Lee, and Naruto reacted exactly as she'd expected. Guy-sensei cried happy tears for her and proclaimed her to be a beautiful blossom in the springtime of youth. Lee pumped his fist in the air and told that he'd never doubted that she could do it. Naruto had laughed and declared that they would celebrate by going to Ichiraku's, then he picked her up and swung her around until she was dizzy. Hinata soaked up the approval and praise like a sponge. Celebrating at Ichiraku's, that sounded like a date. Even though they had eaten there many times before, and even though Hinata knew Naruto didn't mean it that way, she couldn't stop herself from imagining that it was a date. It was one of the happiest moments of her life. For once in her life, Hinata felt like she could conquer mountains. For a moment, she absolutely believed that one day, she would achieve her dreams, until cold harsh reality brought her daydreams crashing down. On the way to the academy, Naruto made a confession that wounded her heart. Hey, Hinata-chan. Naruto sounded inexplicably hesitant. I wanted to ask you for your opinion on something. What is it, Naruto-kun? Hinata asked curiously. I was wondering what you thought of Sakura-chan. I mean, you're a girl, right? So I don't know, what do you think of her? Sakura-chan. Oh no, dread tore away the happiness she had felt just moments earlier. And, was Naruto-kun blushing? He was. A light pink suffused his whiskered cheeks. She needed to know. Did he like Sakura? Why do you want to know? Hinata congratulated herself for not stuttering. Because. Naruto blushed harder and Hinata's heart sank. He put his hands behind his head and looked away. Well, because I think Sakura-chan's kind of cute and she's pretty smart, too. Do you think she'd go on a date with me, if I asked? Naruto-kun had a crush on Sakura. Suddenly, Hinata couldn't look at him. She swallowed the lump in her throat and blinked back tears. She didn't speak until she was sufficiently composed and she was sure her voice wouldn't betray her. Naruto, who was still self-conscious about his confession, didn't notice her hesitation or her distress. I don't know, Naruto-kun. Sakura and I are not close. She looks like a nice girl. Oh, Hinata cringed at how despondent he sounded. She had to do something. She had to say something. No matter how difficult it was or how miserable it made her. But I think that Naruto-kun should follow his heart. If you truly like Sakura, and if Sakura-chan is what makes you happy, then you should do your best and see what comes of it. You are Uzumaki Naruto. And you always do your best, right? Naruto visibly brightened, making Hinata feel simultaneously better and worse. Her emotions were giant jumbled mess, and she still wanted to cry. You're right, Hinata-chan. I was feeling a bit depressed. But I feel better now. Naruto grinned. Do you mind if I go on ahead? I want to see if I can find Sakura-chan before class starts. Yes, I mind very much. Please, I don't want you to go. Of course, not, Naruto-kun, she murmured instead. Good luck. Sakura is a lucky girl. Thanks, Hinata-chan. Hinata watched him dash off. Never in her life had she wanted to be someone else so badly. Why couldn't Naruto-kun like her, instead? She recalled her father's words from long ago, they haunted her in her darkest moments. A defect, that's all she was. She was lying to herself if she tried to believe any differently. Sakura was prettier and smarter. If she made Naruto happy, then Hinata could accept that, eventually. She had to accept it. She would accept it. She would. She could accept that Naruto only wanted to be her friend, and nothing more. Liar. It was late afternoon. As promised, Naruto and Hinata were on their way to Ichiraku's for a celebratory bowl of ramen. The route they usually took to get to Ichiraku's from the Ninja Academy took them by a long stretch of road lined on one side by a tall wooden fence that was perhaps 100 yards long. When he was 8, Naruto had declared that fence perfect for balance training and proceeded to walk along on top of the fence. Fence walking was more difficult than it appeared. The depth of the fence was perhaps half an inch, at most. Naruto learned the hard way, taking many falls in the process, to keep his center of gravity centered, to look straight ahead and not at his feet, because as counterintuitive as that sounded, looking at his feet was the fastest way to lose his balance, and to place one foot directly in front of the other. Even after he'd mastered the exercise, it greatly improved his posture and balance. Naruto made it a habit to walk on top of the fence on their way to Ichiraku's. He did it at every opportunity simply because it was fun. When they reached that stretch of road, Naruto automatically hopped on the fence and continued along his merry way. Hinata, wisely, stayed on the ground and walked beside him. What a bitch. Naruto grumbled. I can't believe I wanted to ask her out. Why didn't you stop me? Hinata knew that was a rhetorical question. So she offered her best friend a sympathetic look and listened quietly. Naruto had been venting his displeasure since leaving the academy. Hinata had deliberately stayed away from class as long as she could. She waited until the last possible moment to arrive. She couldn't bear to watch Naruto ask another girl out. So she had missed the drama. Apparently, Sakura had, in no uncertain terms, turned him down, violently. She seemed incensed that Naruto had even thought to ask her out because she, Sakura, loved Sasuke and wasn't about to give any consideration to any other guy, especially not a dead last loser and a failure like Naruto. Thank goodness Sakura said no. Hinata immediately berated herself for her traitorous thought. All she could feel was profound relief that Sakura had turned Naruto down, though Hinata wished she'd done it more gently. I am being too selfish, but, thank goodness. I mean, yes, she's kind of cute. And yes, she's pretty smart. But she's got the personality of a slug. And can you believe she called me a dead last loser? And a failure. Naruto continued to rant. I haven't been dead last in 3 years. 3. What rock has that slug been hiding under? Hinata made appropriate humming noises. She was relieved to see that Naruto was already over his crush. He did not appear hurt, just insulted. Naruto barely noticed. I don't get it. It's not like Sasuke is all that cool. Why do all the girls like him anyways? He's always so cold towards them. He's such a jerk. Why do they keep going back for more? Do they want to suffer? Anyo. Naruto-kun. Those girls don't really like Sasuke because they don't really know him. He keeps all of them away. The person those girls like is the person they think Sasuke is. He is the last of the Uchiha, a rich and noble clan. To them, Sasuke is like a prince. They are attracted to the idea of becoming his princess. That's stupid, Naruto snorted. Those girls are idiots, crushing on that stupid jerk. At least you don't have a crush on some stupid boy. Right, Hinata-chan. Hinata couldn't help herself. She went ghost white, then almost instantly, went beet red. When she didn't answer right away, Naruto turned to look at her. You don't. Right? He asked again. Is Hinata blushing? She is. Why would she? Unless, the gears started turning and cranking in his head until he arrived at the correct conclusion, for once. His mouth dropped open in shock. Oh, my. God. You do. Hinata has a crush. The revelation was so staggering that Naruto did exactly that. He promptly forgot everything. He forgot he was precariously balanced at the top of a 6-foot-high fence. He forgot how to fall safely. He forgot every last bit of his training and went staggering right off the fence. Naruto was intimately, and painfully, reacquainted with the ground. Hinata's hands flew to her mouth in horror. Naruto-kun. Ow. Ooh, that hurt, Naruto moaned as he tried to sit up. Hinata rushed forward to help him up and took inventory of his injuries. Naruto's fall had been quite impressive. He had scrapes on both knees, both hands, and a shallow cut on his forehead. Hinata fumbled for the first aid kit in her pack. They were studying basic first aid at the academy this year. All students were required to carry a kit with them for class. Hinata was glad she had it with her as she knelt beside him. Naruto watched her clean and bandage his injuries without a word. Who is it? Hinata froze. Of course, he would ask. She should have expected it. What was she going to say? She couldn't tell Naruto that it was him that she had a crush on. She just couldn't. Not after he'd told her about his now ex-crush on Sakura. He obviously didn't feel the same way about her. She didn't want to lose his friendship or make things awkward between them because she wanted more, so much more. What do you mean? Hinata stalled desperately. She could feel the heat crawling up her cheeks. Who's the stupid boy that you like? Naruto frowned at her evasiveness. He's not stupid. Naruto was taken aback at her vehemence. Why didn't you tell me you liked someone? He asked quietly. I didn't want him to find out. Hinata shook her head. I still don't. He doesn't like me back that way. I would just embarrass myself if he found out. I get why you didn't tell him. But why didn't you tell me, at least? Aren't we best friends? Don't you trust me? I wouldn't have told anyone, not even the guy you like. Hinata cringed at the hurt expression on his face. She hurried to reassure him. It's not like that at all. I do. It's just, this is a very private thing for me. I couldn't tell you, she finished lamely. Will you tell me who it is now? No. Why not? No. It's not Sasuke, is it? Naruto looked horrified. No. Well, that's a relief. You can do much better than Sasuke, Hinata-chan. Is it Lee? He's a pretty good guy. No. Hinata loved Naruto's persistence in the face of overwhelming odds. It was one of the traits she loved best about him. But just this once, she wished he wasn't so determined. Hey, if you tell me who it is, I can help you get together with him, Naruto coaxed, but this only made Hinata more upset. No. Stop it. Naruto-kun. I'm not going to tell you who it is. Naruto was immediately contrite. In the 3 years since they had become friends, Hinata had gradually overcome her stutter. Now, the only time she stuttered was when she was under extreme emotional distress. Naruto noticed belatedly that she was on the verge of tears. I'm an idiot. Satisfying his curiosity was not worth the price of her tears. I'm sorry, Hinata-chan. I didn't mean to upset you. I'll stop. I promise, he said guiltily. Thank you, Naruto-kun. But if this guy ever hurts you or makes you cry, I'll kick his ass. Naruto-kun. Okay. Naruto grinned unrepentantly. I won't kick his ass. How about I just break a few bones? Naruto-kun. Hinata didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He was threatening himself on her behalf. He didn't love her the way that she loved him, but he did love her, as a precious, best friend. It was enough, for now. In the end, she settled for smiling weakly. Hinata finished applying the last bandage. She was done, except for one thing. One thing that she'd always wanted to do for Naruto, except she'd never dared. Was she braver today than she was yesterday? Was she more confident today than she was yesterday? Could she do this one thing today that she had been afraid to do yesterday? Yes. Thanks, Hinata-chan. Naruto examined the bandages he now sported. You did a great job fixing me up. Some of the cuts still sting a little though. Wait, Naruto-kun. There's one more thing I want to do. Hinata leaned forward and gently kissed the bandages over his knees. She cupped his hands in hers and gently kissed the bandages over his palms. Finally, she moved up to his forehead and kissed the bandage over his temple. There, Hinata smiled shyly at Naruto. I kissed it better. Did it work? It did. Naruto beamed. That night, Naruto lay awake wondering about the mysterious boy Hinata liked. I was just joking around earlier. If this guy ever makes Hinata-chan cry, I'm not going to kick his ass or break his bones. I'm going to fucking kill him after I make sure he's suffered immensely. Naruto yawned sleepily. Going to have to hide the body though, don't want Hinata-chan finding out and getting upset for no reason. And with that final thought, Naruto drifted into dreamless slumber. This was just the beginning, the real secret will unfold in the next episode. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And hit the bell icon so you'll be the first to see what happens next. See you again in the next journey of Uzumaki Empire 2.0.